And we are on air, and it's kind of a bi-coastal thing here, or a stretch across distance and political or geological boundaries. We've got Nathan Hatchunk, who is up in Canada, our Canadian brother. We've got Stephen out in California, who is our non-Canadian brother, and the old guy here in the Midwest, kind of at the center of the universe. And we decided to do a little bit of a tune-up for people, sharing some thoughts and ideas about how to stay balanced in the midst of a seemingly more and more chaotic universe as things have been unfolding politically and environmentally all around the world. And it's really easy to get into that fear space. And so maybe this little video will offer you some ideas as to how to step out of fear when you begin to get too seriously involved in the things going on around us. And within that, I'm going to start off with a thought from a pundit from East India, Pema Chodron. He says, when we resist change, it's called suffering. But when we can completely let go and not struggle against it, we can embrace the groundlessness of our situation and relax into its dynamic quality called enlightenment. So this morning, you guys, what's the fear factor in your neighborhood?
In Alberta, there's lots of worry about the economy, and oil's been slow, so I think a lot of people are worried about that. I don't think we're too worried about Trump here. Just depends on who you talk to and what their life experience is, I guess.
Yeah, you guys have a lot of ranching up in that direction too. So
yeah, they don't get affected by too much. Those guys, they're pretty steady, I think. There's normal ups and downs, but.
And you, Stephen?
Well, I haven't heard a whole lot from the people in this area about the political climate or Trump, but I can tell you that I believe we're all feeling the emotional dynamics on some level, in some shape or form, from our own unique perspectives, even if we're not realizing that's what's going on collectively. That's certainly going on internally for most people here.
And how do you guys test for the degree of investment that you're feeling in, you know, those exterior or seemingly exterior forces going on around you? I know with myself, if I'm in a situation where I'm really overthinking and concerned about something, I tend to feel a constriction in my stomach. You know, it goes down into your gut and gives you that feeling of carrying a lump around with you, which is literally what's going on, but the lump is in your mind. So any other thoughts on how you identify or how you can get some sense of the degree of impact this is having on you?
Well, I would start off by saying, like, in relation to what you just said, Chris, is that whenever you're feeling something and you're noticing something that's in your experience and something's causing you fear and it's causing that lump in your belly, like, that's not in your mind, that actually is in your body. Like, that's emotion that's being held onto by your body. And so, and then the more people get into the story of what that emotion is about, the more it's just going to sit there and grow, because you're not actually doing anything about it. So that when we have these fear stories come in, whether it be Trump or Fukushima or whatever it is, or someone's being an asshole to us at work, the only way around it is not to run away from it or not to escape from the fear. The only way to deal with it is to go into it, to go into whatever you're feeling, to go into that lump, to allow that lump to be there, to allow it to express itself in any way that it wants to. Like, that's the only way to clear stuff out. If we start thinking about stuff Like if I have that feeling in my stomach and then I say, oh, it's because Trump's a president and all the shitstorm that's happening there, then that's just a story in my mind that is going to prevent me from actually dealing with what I'm feeling. So the key is to go into what you're feeling and allow it to expand as much in your body as you possibly can, and to allow your body to metabolize it, because there's information in that feeling. It's like this sack of shit that we hold on to, and in the middle of that sack is like this little gold nugget. But we have to feel all the way through that sack, and usually that means feeling negative emotions that we don't want to feel, or what we label as negative emotions. We got to feel all the way through them until we get to that little nugget at the middle of it, and then that will tell you what the feeling was about. We can. If we try to tell ourselves what it's about, or ignore it, or run away from it, it's just going to sit there and it'll just keep getting bigger.
That's very much a set of truths to work with. Stephen, you want to elaborate on those ideas?
Sure, yeah. I can only give my own personal viewpoint for how I process. A lot of my time, probably most of my time, I spend in really deep breathing. And I just find that, you know, like, because you and I, Chris, have been working with A Course in Miracles a lot. So I'll say those workbook lessons to myself, but alongside that, I'm doing this really deep breathing. It's very visceral, this feeling of like being really honest with myself and like what I'm feeling internally. Because the way I see it is that there's this reflection that's happening on a visceral level, on a feeling level, of I think bridging the gap between what you said, Chris, and what Nathan said, of it's happening in your mind. Well, not like your intellectual mind, but in like your energetic field mind, in a sense. So there's a lot of like what we have to engage that can't come through the thought level. I absolutely agree with that.
Right, and within that, the emotional body mind, which I refer to as the mortal mind, because, you know, we have to be honest with it. At some point, the body is going to die. You are going to discard the body. So that is a mortal factor. That is the part of our belief system, our consciousness, our being, that is ultimately going to become disposable, this definition or this belief about who I am. And I think that that really is one of the big underlying factors in what's going on right now, is we have these beliefs, but they're not really based on reality. And if you look at whatever's going on around you, you're going to find that it has a cause and effect, and it has a dualistic nature of being both good and bad. I don't care what it is. If you look long enough at any particular circumstance or any particular event or individual, you're going to be able to identify the fact that there is a good point and a bad point about this person or about this event. So whenever we're engaged in things that are dualistic in nature, we know that they are part of this journey that we're on, down this line of travel, and we're on this river. We started off in Beijing, and hopefully eventually we'll end up in, you know, Beverly Hills. But the idea is that all of the events that we're having are only real in that exact second that we're witnessing them. But beyond that, they fall into the realm of non-reality. How does that fit into your thought system, either one of you?
It's interesting when people start using the word reality, because what is reality? And I'll give my definition of what reality is, because there's a physical reality that everyone experiences, not in the same way, but everyone experiences. So if you guys were all in my kitchen right now, we'd all be in the same physical space, the same physical reality of my kitchen. So then we're each having a different experience in my kitchen, in the same place. Like even as we are right now, we're on Earth. We're on the same physical Earth, let's just say. So we have a starting point where we're each having different experiences in that. So I think of reality as each individual person has their own reality that's like an invisible imprint that's on the physical world. So as you're walking through the world, so if I was scared of dogs and I was walking with someone that wasn't scared of dogs, as we're walking along, we're experiencing the same physical reality. We're walking on the same sidewalk. We see a big dog. I'm scared of that dog. They're not. So our realities like separate at that point, kind of, or it becomes apparent that we're living in different realities. So then in their reality that shows, or in my reality that shows up as like a red danger. In their reality, they're like, oh, I'm going to pet that dog. Or they're excited about it. So it's very different realities. And you can extend that into how everyone looks at the world. So someone that hasn't left their small little town of small town USA is going to be very scared, potentially, depending on what their life experiences has been and what people have told them about what it's like in the rest of the world. Same physical reality, but it's a different perception of reality. And it's their own personal reality. So each individual person, there's 7 billion, however many people there are, there's 7 billion realities happening at the exact same time on one physical reality of Earth. So when you say reality, it gets very sticky because each individual person has their own reality. So we have to be empathetic towards each individual person's reality, because it's theirs. And right. So to like start breaking it apart, you'd have to talk to that person long enough to see what their reality is.
But again, on the unconscious level, aren't we all plugged into, I mean, that's what's creating the manifestation of this realm, is our collective belief in a shared reality, even though we have this holographic phenomenon going on of every individual's reality is unique to their perception, their belief, their fears, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, because their personal reality, their individual reality is custom made for them to bring them home to where to where we're all going, which is heaven on earth.
Stephen?
I think that what's interesting is, to tie in with our the idea of emotional processing, is what I'll notice when I'm interacting with people is that we all have what seems like these unconscious parts in our own mind. We all have these that place sort of where there's this separation between us, where we believe that we're separate, or where there's this like blind spot in our vision. And oftentimes we even don't know where that is until we come up against it. And so I'll be interacting with people. Primarily I'm interacting with the people I live with, my family here, and come up against that threshold. And that's when the emotions start to come up, is when I can't see exactly what's going on inside of me. And so that makes a sense of fear come up, or a sense of guilt come up. And oftentimes I find it's like you have to be very careful, because it's like walking around in a minefield when it comes to especially when we're interacting with people on this planet who have these separate, so-called separate realities, these unique realities. We have to be very careful with one another and when we're connecting, because it's very easy to become activated.
Right. And within that, how do you get a sounding? How do you get a sense of what other people are thinking or experiencing this realm? Are you able to have that defined clearly by some sort of a process? Can you look at something, or what's the word for it? Can you break through that bubble that you live in, so that you can see the real story that's actually going on?
I think that the people who are around us, specifically the ones who are right in our vicinity, are there to bust our bubbles for us. How we do that can definitely be done with hopefully some kindness and some grace, because man, it's not always pleasant to have your bubble busted when you're living in a certain unique reality that you really believe is true, and someone comes in and lets you know that's not the way it is, and there's a whole other world out there you're not considering. That can feel kind of painful. It's like a wake-up call. But what I've just found is that I have a built-in barometer where I can start to feel the pressure rising in terms of my emotional experience and the people in front of me, their emotional experience. So when I start to feel that pressure gauge rise, I start to realize, okay, there's a bubble that's about to burst right now. And I just think it's really important to stay observant of that and try to be aware of that, so when it comes, we can be prepared to go through that experience.
Any thoughts, Nathan?
Yeah, I think like to find out what a person's reality they're living in, you just gotta listen to them. Just talk to them and like ask questions and see and really like be empathetic towards their life and who they are and who they're being and what they've gone through. Like they'll tell you once there's trust built. Like trust isn't built in a minute, but if you sit with someone long enough and you're just interested in finding out what they've got going on, they'll eventually tell you. Like it'll always come up because people really want to talk about themselves and what they got going on. Like it's interesting. They want to share. Everyone wants to share. So then I think about kind of going off what Stephen said about realities and bursting the realities. I think one of the keys to like walking each other home and opening ourselves up to more and more is to have those realities that we have stretched and the structures that we built onto ourselves stretched and broken. So to kind of give you an example of that, if I have someone at work that I feel is being rude to me or being an asshole, if I've built a structure in my mind that says, okay, so the person's being an asshole, I'm feeling like shit because this person's being an asshole, then I've built a structure in my mind that says, okay, whenever someone's an asshole, I feel like this, so I've got to get away from that. So that's a structure that I've built. So then anytime anybody else comes in and is rude to me, I'll just follow the same structure because it's worked for me in the past, and I'll move away from this person. And that is all well and good until you're left in this little corner of your world where you can't move, because if you move anywhere, there's people all around you that are going to be rude to you and cause you to feel whatever you're going to feel. So the way to start breaking out of that is to start letting those structures fall. And the way to do that is kind of what Stephen alluded to, is to put yourself in those situations and then like start watching what's happening within you and like letting that emotion flow through your body, because as that emotion flows through your body, it's going to start knocking those structures over. And you can either do that consciously or it's going to happen unconsciously, one of the two, because it's got to happen. Those structures have to be cleared out. And that's kind of what's happening when people talk about my whole world is crashing down around me. That's what's happening. Like, it's not the physical world crashing down around you. It's your own reality structures that you've built to keep yourself safe, which is in actuality keeping you separate from everyone else and yourself.
Right. And that's the point that we wanted to arrive at here, was that idea of separation. Is there separation? And, if there were separation, all of our darkest fears would be realized. So basically, as we start this journey toward enlightenment, one of the first plateaus we arrive at is realization that there is one life. There is one eternal, perfect, universal life that we are participating in. And any illusion of separation is simply a barrier that we have created against looking at a part of ourselves. So basically, everybody around you and all the events that are going on are an outpicturing of what's going on within you as the individual. So within the midst of all of this, what tools do you have to offer people as to how they can begin to get beyond that sense of polarization, of me against the universe, of me as a separate individual or a separate situation? What has worked for you in the past?
Well, emotional processing is the key, I think, to removing that separation, or realizing that the separation has been there for you to learn, because we've never been separate. We just think we have. So emotional processing, which is just feeling everything that you can possibly feel, like letting the emotion that you're, or in the stuff that you're feeling, move through your body. So it doesn't matter what emotion you're feeling. All it is sensation that is in your body. So whether it be, like, everyone's happy with the emotions that we like feeling: joy, happiness, peace, like all of those things. We allow those to flow unrestricted through our bodies. And it's just sensation. We put labels on it as, this is what this sensation is, and I like it. Where people get caught up is when these sensations start coming into their bodies that they have been told aren't good. So as children, we're told, don't get angry, especially don't get angry at your parents. When you're a baby, you're allowed to cry, but that stops very quickly. Like, you're punished for crying. Any one of these so-called negative emotions, we're taught very quickly that we will not get the love, care, and attention that we need for survival if we express these emotions in the way that they're flowing through our bodies. So we start creating this separate self, this separate identity, to move ourselves into, to be, so that we get the love, care, and attention that we need for survival as kids. So it's a matter of breaking down those structures that we've built, and removing our energy and awareness from that separate identity that we've created. And the only way to do that is that when this emotion hits you, when somebody causes you to feel something, sit and feel it. Like, try to stop doing whatever you're doing and put all of your attention, all of your awareness on that feeling, on that sensation that's in your body, because that's all it is. And generally it's going to be around, like you mentioned earlier, around your stomach, because that's the center of emotions in your body. That's like the where all the emotions sit, right in the gut. And so the more you can stop whatever you're doing and put all of your attention on that sensation, and I like putting my hands there, because it's like a focuser of my attention. And then I'll just talk to it, and I'll just say, hey, it's okay that you're here. It's okay that I'm feeling this. And I'll notice that my mind will try to tell me why I'm feeling this way. And the more that you can let go of that story, and just keep putting your attention back on the feeling, on the sensation, the better it's going to be for you. Because as you put your attention awareness on it, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually it'll just pop like a balloon. And then you'll feel like this sense of relief, and this sense of like, oh, because it's gotten so big in your body, it almost feels like it's going to take you over. It never can, because you're bigger than it, but it's going to feel that way. And so what actually is happening is, because, and I'll say this first, is that when you're going through that, when you're feeling this, you're not going to feel the age you feel now. Like, I wasn't feeling like a 37, 38-year-old man when I was going through this. I was feeling like an 8, 9-year-old, 5-year-old, 4-year-old. And the reason why is because when we're going through these experiences, when we're children, and you're told that you're not allowed to feel how you're feeling, that you're not allowed to be who you're being, you're not allowed to express what you're expressing, then you kind of fracture yourself. And it's almost like your world is like this mirror that's mirroring who you're being. And you have to hit that mirror, like your parents or whoever is in charge of you hits that mirror, and it causes a fracture. So now as you look at the mirror and it's fractured, then there's all these different little cells that you see. And so every time that happens, the mirror just keeps getting hit and keeps getting fractured and fractured. So eventually people end up with a very fractured view of their world. And in order to go back and repair those fractures, you leave a little bit of your consciousness there. Like, there's a little portion of your inner child that's left there to just say, hey, I'm going to come back and pick you up, because I can't fully embrace you as you are right now. So you just stay here. I'll be back for you. And so we keep leaving like these little breadcrumb of trails. So to go back into it, as we're feeling that emotion, that's what we're doing. We're repairing that fracture. And so we have to allow us to express ourselves in whichever way that we're feeling. And it might end up being that you're going to feel like a 5-year-old as you're crying on the floor. But the more that you can open up and respect your inner child, because he's the one holding on to this emotion. Like, you're human, they're the ones holding on to all this emotion, and we have to give them permission, give ourselves permission to feel however we're feeling. So we're bringing back those little parts of us that we left behind.
Right. Basically, in tribal rhetoric, this is called soul retrieval, and a lot of the earlier societies, you know, I'm a Potawatomi ancestry, but tribes all over the world have practiced this technique long before psychoanalysis was discovered, and it is a very valid approach to resolving a lot of our inner conflict that comes about as a result of either self-imposed suppression or suppression that has been thrust upon us by those in our environment. So what do you have to think about that, Stephen?
I can definitely vouch for all of this on a very personal level. For the last a little bit over a year now, I've been going through that exact process of reclaiming these inner child aspects of myself in such a dramatic way. And I found that I'm having that exact experience of going back and it's like walking through a minefield. Like I said before, it's like the things that are triggering me and getting me to face those feelings are things that seem so trivial sometimes, or so ridiculous. So things that my mind just looks at and goes like, you know, like, what's your deal, man? Like, why are you freaking out? And even the people around me sometimes will speak those thoughts to me, like, what's wrong? Like, why are you upset about that? And it's like, I don't know. And it's like the child in me, where those emotions are still held, are having a visceral reaction that's coming even before I have any sort of story about it. And that's a good thing, because I don't want to make up any more stories about it. I just want to feel it and forgive it, and then, you know, release it. And so I can feel a greater sense of freedom in my life.
Yeah, that's interesting that you added the word forgive it, because that would imply that there was a judgment in this whole process of whatever it was that created this event that caused you to become a fractured, you know, become broken. So basically, it sounds like really the way we cope with the world around us is by coping with our emotional charges that we have left behind in our journey through time. So it really has nothing to do with events or situations or circumstances. It more likely is hinged upon the idea that you have all of these false ideas, all of this false understanding, or these false visions of who you are. And events around you that, let's say, somebody else would not be triggered by, are going to trigger you in a very profound way. So the best way to cope is not to try to intellectually resolve the situation by saying, oh, if we do this and don't do that, and, you know, if we go out and start a movement and chain ourselves to a tree, or, you know, get involved in a political movement, those things continue to keep the real core of the fear and of the problem out of reach. Does that seem right, Nathan?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the more we run around trying to change external circumstances to make ourselves happy, the more the external circumstances are just going to stay there, because they're there as a reflection of what's going on within you. So right. It's the feeling what you're feeling. So yeah, whatever Trump does, check in with yourself and see what you're feeling about it, and then focus on the feeling. And the more you do, the more that, you know, I say you as a collective you, the more that everyone does that, the more emotional processing that is going to be happening. And then all these problems are just, they're not going to disappear overnight, but it's going to be pretty magical what happens. Like once people start really processing the emotions that they're feeling and cleaning up the stuff that they have in their own life and getting their own houses in order. And I talk about like their internal houses, stuff is going to really start changing fast. And in like doing this is also a way that everyone can help what's going on in the world, because like you talked about earlier about the collective, the unconscious collective, everyone's putting out like this electromagnetic, your heart is putting out this electromagnetic field, right? And the electromagnetic field is a combination of what you're thinking and what you're feeling. So it's coming from your heart, it's coming from your gut, or it's coming from your head and coming from your gut, coming into your heart and being pushed outwards at all times. And you can notice this when you go to someone's house and you just enjoy being there because you just enjoy their presence. Like they don't have to do anything, you just enjoy being around them because of who they are. And there's other people that you just like, I just don't want to be around that person. Like it's a feeling, there's nothing you can put your finger on, it's just a feeling. And that's your feeling, their electromagnetic field that they're putting out. And so that's happening at all times. So if someone in Peru is going through an experience where it's just generating a lot of fear for them, then they're going to be putting out a lot of fear into the collective. So me sitting here in Lethbridge, I can't go down, let's say if there's an earthquake in Peru, I can't go down to Peru and help the people in Peru. There's disasters happening all over the world all the time. We can't go out and help them all. If a person feels called, they want to go down there, like all the power to them. But each individual person can look at all these circumstances that are happening in their life, in the world, and check and see how it feels to them and try to empathize with those people that are there and allow that emotion to move through your body. They're not able to process that emotion as they're going through it, but it's being released into the collective. So the better we get at processing emotion, the more we can just start becoming these energy filters where we're just taking in anything from the collective and processing it through our bodies and then pushing it back out through our own electromagnetic field that we're pushing out. So we're drawing in fear, processing it through and sending it back out in whatever we want to send it back out as. So in that capacity, everyone has the capacity to change the world, but it has to start with each individual person clearing out their own stuff, because to be able to get to a place where you can help others emotionally process, you have to get good at emotionally processing yourself.
So when we have things in our immediate reality, circumstances that are showing up, whatever we're seeing that's triggering us, that's having some sort of impact on us, if I have it correct, what we're suggesting here is saying that just let yourself experience it, no matter what it is, if that's a dis-ease that you're feeling or a sense of whatever you're experiencing your immediate reality as, just let yourself feel it all, no matter how kind of, I guess, crippling it might feel at times, no matter how challenging it might feel at times. If we can just let ourselves remain in that feeling as long as possible, you're saying eventually we'll become, we'll digest it, and then we'll become immune to its effects.
Right. It's kind of like a vaccine. Yeah, you betcha. Yeah. The key is to sit with it long enough with gentleness towards yourself, because a lot of times it's gonna hurt. Like allowing the pain to expand in your body, this pain of whether it be anger or whatever it is, like it's painful and you're gonna cry and I've gone into my room and beat my bed so many times, just like of all the anger that I was holding on to, that was coming up through me. But the more that I can facilitate myself with love and gentleness and allow that to move through me without restriction, the more that I can handle. And secondly, once you've accepted a so-called negative emotion, once you've fully accepted it, you're allowed to change it so that it feels however you want it to feel. Like, you're allowed to do that. So fear, anger, like all of these things, they don't have to hurt anymore. Once you fully accepted them, you can change them. So I kind of think of it as like, if you think of like a lot of negative emotions, and you were to paint it, it could come out as like a very barren landscape, especially if you're not feeling them, like someone caught in depression. If you were to paint that, it's a very barren landscape. So if I've painted this picture of a barren landscape and I'm holding it at arm's length and not accepting it, I can't change it. It's impossible for me to change it. Once I've like taken that whole, grabbed that painting that I've painted within myself and I've accepted it, and I'm holding on to it and saying, I got you, I'm gonna take care of you, everything's okay now, I'll take care of everything from now on, you don't have to hurt anymore. Now that I've fully accepted it, and I realize that saying I've accepted is a lot more than letting it go through you. Like, it has to actually go through your whole body unrestricted before you've actually accepted it. Then I can paint whatever picture I want. So when anger comes in, I can paint it as whatever I want. When fear comes in, I can paint it as whatever I want, because I'm allowed to do that, because I'm the creator of my own experience. But we can't do that until we fully accept it and allow it to move through our bodies.
And what happens once you have allowed it to move through your body, after you have arrived at the place where the storm is over and the clouds are parting and the sun is starting to shine again? How would you define that new space that you're stepping into? Is it a neutral space? Is it a space without any clear definition? Because I know in my own personal journey, I find that when I penetrate one of these issues that comes along, I end up arriving at a space of feeling a sense of peace, a sense of love that was not existent in my world prior to that. So,
right, it is there. It's just covered by all the shit. Like, that feeling is who you really are. And that's why all these emotions that are stacked on top of you, there's no need to be scared of them, because at the bottom, at the base layer of everything is who you really are. And so all you got to do is just clear out all these layers of shit that we put on top of it, and eventually we'll get down to that spot where there is just space and you just feel at peace and you're not scared of anything. Like, stuff still comes into your reality that's going to cause like you to feel, but that's okay, because you know that nothing's going to come in that you can't handle. So you become invincible. You're walking around talking to people, interacting with people, and you're not worried about what's going to happen. You're not worried about what they're going to say to you, because you've already experienced so much emotion, and you'll get to a point where you realize that the more emotion you can move through your body, the better your life experience gets. So then life is in the uncomfortable. Like, you want to move to wherever it's uncomfortable, because that's where the most sensation is available for you. That's where the most growth is. And that's where the most pleasure is going to be for you. So I mean, you're not going to go and like throw yourself in an oven or into a fire or whatever, but you'll go into these circumstances and you won't be scared of anything, because you're just
metaphorically
everything.
Might be
right.
Like an oven. Right.
Yeah, metaphorically it might be. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else to add, Stephen?
So in terms of going through this process, how do you, Guy, I'll open this question up, how do you keep yourself from acting on these emotions that are flowing through? How do you stop yourself from lashing out if you feel strong anger, or from blaming people if you feel strong grief inside of you? Because clearly it might be from an objective standpoint that these emotions are not because of the people around you. But when that emotion comes up, it becomes very persuasive to say, to project it onto people around you. So how do you deal with that?
I think for me, the thing that works most immediately is, if I do snap, is to immediately confront that within myself, asking myself, what am I feeling? and then to forgive myself, like the Hawaiian technique where you're addressing that jolt of negativity and recognizing that it had created fear, and then apologizing for allowing that fear to interfere with, your reaction, your interactions with others, and to reach out to the person that you snap on and, again, apologize and make sure that as you are starting to step away from each other, that you're not clinging to the debris that you caused by having that spontaneous reaction that takes you into an aggressive posture.
Nathan?
So kind of from what you're saying there, Stephen, it sounds like you're just losing presence in the experience. So it's like when something's happening, it triggers you. If you're emotional, if your nerves aren't ready to handle that amount of energy moving through you, then you're going to lose presence, and then you're going to act in a way that is not how you would like to act, I guess, or how you would like to handle it. So the key, and I know it's not the easiest thing, and it requires creativity to see like when you're doing it, but is to really watch yourself and see the few points before it happens. Like there'll be a couple points before you lose presence, like you become a liability in the experience. There'll
That's
be a
where
couple
the barometer comes in.
Right. Yeah. So if you can notice it and then remove yourself physically, if you have to at that point, and then remove yourself physically, but still allow the feelings to be there, and then go into another room, beat a pillow, do whatever you need to do, scream into a pillow, just something to allow that energy to move through you unrestricted. And then, okay, I'm present again. I'm not a liability. Okay, I'll go back in. And I know that's kind of like a very clangy, ratchety way to do it, but until you can like just kind of, I think of like our nervous system as like these little rivers, right, flowing through. So as an experience happens that triggers us, it's sending like this flood of emotion through our nervous system. And if our nervous system isn't acclimatized to that amount of energy, it just shuts down, and then we just react. So the more that you can allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling, and allow like that energy to move through your nervous system, allowing those channels to expand and expand. It's like moving from a dirt road to a super highway. Mm-hmm. Like there has to be a lot of construction that happens for that to happen. And usually it doesn't happen overnight. It starts with a dirt road, then it's a paved road, then a 2-lane highway, 4-lane, 6-lane. So it's processes and levels that, and there's construction always in between that, right? And there's slow times, and you gotta slow down for that construction and watch the workers. Like there's things that have to happen until you get to that point, right? So it's just those, they're like, oh, okay, this is happening. I'm reaching a point. Oh, that's still under construction. Okay, we got to take a detour.
Right. What it feels like is that oftentimes if we haven't done a lot of this, especially throughout our life, and I can vouch for this in my own way, that if there's numbness that we feel internally, where we can't sense, we literally, our nerves have turned off. When we start to open back up, it's like a refiring. The nerves have to wake back up somehow. And sometimes it can kind of feel like a rude awakening. Oftentimes I think it happens that way, where the nerves have to, because then they're feeling all over again. So you're feeling the whole duality spectrum of both the pain and the good. And it's pretty exhilarating. But yeah, I think you have to be careful with shutting off and reacting.
Yeah. Because then, I mean, it doesn't really totally depends on who you're in the experience with. If you're in experience with someone and then you react, if you're in a conscious relationship, I guess you could say, where if you're doing this stuff, the person you're with is going to be doing this stuff, and you can help each other do it, right? So the thing is, if you do it once, okay, catch yourself. Okay, I saw that I did that, and then go back and see why you did that. And then the next time it happens, follow those points beforehand to not do it again, because we don't want to just keep emotionally vomiting on people. That's not fun for anybody.
Anything from you there, Chris?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much in 100% agreement with actually our whole discussion here. I know it's time that we start winding it down because Nathan has things on his calendar. So basically, I would just put it out to everybody that if you have found this video in any way interesting, definitely contact me or Stephen or Nathan. And we're going to continue to develop these ideas as just grounding devices, as ways of having discussions about the life that we're living here, the shared life, the shared experience, and how to make it more joyous, how to get away from the fear and the loathing and the frustration and the blockage and the angst. But I think most importantly, it's probably with this first video of these kind of discussions, it becomes very obvious that the problem is not outside. The problem is not a person or a circumstance or an event that is attacking you. The problem is inside and how you are responding to the world outside. So leaving it on that level, I'll ask my two compadres here to give a final thought and we'll wind her down.
Cool, yeah. The only thing I would say to what you just said there, Chris, is that it's not a problem. Because if we label it as a problem, then you're labeling your inner child as a problem. So it's not a problem, it's just an aspect of yourself that's hurting and needs attention, needs love, needs gentleness, needs comfort, needs care, and you're the only one there that's going to be able to provide that for them.
Right, it's merely a perceived problem. It is not a real problem.
Right. Yeah. We just need to take care of ourselves. Then everything will change. Yeah.
Stephen?
Oh, I just love everything that's been said this time. This has been a great reminder, and I feel a great healing happening through talking about all of this, and like the merging of for a long time I felt this merging happening between the idea of mind expansion and emotional expansion. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool to watch that happen.
Yeah, nice. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was a good way to spend a full moon day as we're moving through the month of February.
Yeah.
And it was great chatting with you, gentlemen.
Yeah, you too, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, just stay tuned to this channel. This is the launch of a new channel for me on YouTube because there's going to be a multitude of different discussions coming up for everybody who is out there on the journey through life and trying to make it a conscious journey.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Chris. Good spending time with you. And you too, Stephen.
Yeah, you guys, pleasure. Pleasure.
See you again soon.
Okay.